Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is Emma Lefebvre, and yes, I am wearing the same sweater again. It's a really cozy sweater and it's really cold outside, but it's been washed and so have I, so we're good, just in case you were wondering. Anyway, today we are going to be testing out these HIMI Jelly Cup Gouache paints. So this is something I've been wanting to try for a while, and I'm going to tell you why they appeal to me. My trouble with gouache is that they come in tubes, and in order to use them, you have to put them in your palette, decide beforehand what colors you're using, and sometimes you don't end up using all the paint, and that really bothers me because I hate wasting paint. Gouache can be reactivated, but the consistency never seems to be the same. So with these, they come in these little jelly cups. Let me see if I can get one out. These little jelly cups, and you actually take the plastic off and you put them back into the palette with it exposed. But it seals airtight, so it will stay wet. And over time, they can become a little bit more dry. All you have to do is spray them with water and mix them up. But for the most part, they will stay fairly wet. I've seen a couple reviews on these and I wanted to try them out for myself. This for me sounds ideal just because I like painting and deciding what colors I'm gonna use as I go. I kind of hate planning out in advance what I'm gonna need and then, like I said, wasting paint. So this method really appealed to me. And now it's all about how they actually perform on paper. So let's jump right in and see. Okay, so here's a closer look at the HIMI gouache. I got it from Amazon. I got the 18-pack color set with the pink case, and that's a removable palette that you can use to mix the paints. And in another review, I saw the person just flipped it upside down to take all the little cups out, and it was genius, just a lot easier. So this is what the jelly cups look like, and you take off the lid and dispose of it, and then you're just gonna put all the colors back into the palette. Okay, so now that all the lids are removed, I am just gonna swatch each color for you to see how they perform, and I'm drawing a black line so I can paint over top to test out the opaqueness of the paint. Okay, so I got these off Amazon and I've seen a few reviews on them. I've been very curious, and like I said in the intro, they did appeal to me because once you open that lid, they are all exposed and you can just kind of paint as you go, which I am really interested in just because that's how I work with watercolor. And I don't like a big cleanup, especially when I find that you have a 2-year-old and you may need to drop everything at once. You know, you can just pop the lid back on and it won't dry out and you're not wasting paint. So that's what really appealed to me with these. I also saw that this is a Chinese-based company. I thought just by the name it sounded like it might have been a Japanese company, but apparently it's a Chinese company. And there's been a lot of positive reviews about these paints. So at first glance, I'm not a professional with gouache. I can't really tell what is good quality and bad quality gouache, but so far it performs really well. I found some of the paints a bit more opaque than others, but I might not have been lathering it like I should have. I still consider myself quite a newbie when it comes to gouache. I still feel like there's lots to learn, so I am learning now. As for the names of the paints, I couldn't find any on the packaging. Maybe I just missed it, but I did have to go back to Amazon and look up the names of each of the colors. And some of them were the traditional colors that you would usually find, and some of them were not. Okay, so now that I have tested all those paints out and swatched them, just looking at how they dry nice and matte, just like a gouache should. Some of them are a bit more opaque than others. Some of them are a bit streaky. I may not have used as much paint as I should have, or just maybe layering would have made a difference, but I'd rather just test it out in a painting to see what it's really like. So I want to do something fun and simple, and I don't know if you guys have seen those gouache plant videos. They're just mesmerizing. And I really like how bold they are. So I'm gonna do something like that. I'm gonna do it on black paper because I want this for my living room if it turns out. And so I'm gonna do it on black paper. I'm gonna do the pot, kind of the color scheme of my living room, and then the green plant. I think I'm gonna do like an aloe plant because I feel like that might be the easiest, and I'm still kind of a newbie at this. So that's what we're gonna do. And I've been looking at some different artists. One artist, Philip Boelter, I hope I'm saying that right. I'll just show you, I found him on Pinterest. So I just really like his style, and I just want to try something similar to that. I will put his socials down below, so if you want to check him out and follow him, that would be great because he has some really awesome things. Anyway, we're just gonna fly and do, I don't know what I'm saying. Okay, let's start. Okay, so first I'm gonna actually just sketch it out. I'm gonna do the pot first. And this, I'm really gonna have to step back and make sure. Actually, you know what? Just so it's even, let's measure across so it's even. Around there is about the middle. Okay. And we're just gonna make it rounded. Okay, so there's our pot. Okay. Then we're gonna do these like aloe kind of leaves. Okay, I think I have my outline and we're gonna start painting. So I think I'm gonna start off with the aloe leaves. And okay, so the greens I have in this palette are a bit too vibrant for me. I want them a bit more earthy. So I'm gonna have to use the mixing wells to mix the greens that I want. So I feel like this one is the most earthy green of them all. So I'm just gonna lay that there. And I think I'm gonna grab a little bit of this dark burnt umber. Like that, and that could be kind of like the dark part. I think I gotta go light first and then build up the shadows. I get a little bit of white and a little bit of blue. Or maybe like this like turquoisey color. Let's get like that. There we go, that's a nice green. Okay, we're gonna start with this green and then we'll build up darker. So I'm just gonna go over each leaf, and I'm using my Princeton Select brushes for this. I'm not using my typical watercolor brushes. Gouache does wash out of your brush easily, but to save my watercolor brushes, I'm using my Princeton Select. So I have a round, size 4. I have this flat shader, and I also have this angle brush. We'll see which works the best, but I'm just gonna kind of go in there and start. Okay, so first impressions, especially working on black paper, the coverage was great and it actually wasn't streaky at all. It was a really nice creamy consistency, and it didn't seem too thick either, because I know with my other gouache sets that I have, specifically the Winsor Newton, I had to add quite a bit of water to get this creamy consistency. This seemed a bit better with that, and I did have to add a little bit of water on my brush, but not too much. But it was really nice to work with, and I actually really enjoyed painting this just because, you know, you could kind of take your time with it and just enjoy the process instead of kind of like watercolor where sometimes you have to rush because your paper's drying too fast. This was really nice, and it was really great and easy to work with. Okay, so I'm gonna let that dry, and while I'm letting that dry, we're gonna do the pot. I don't even know if this is the correct way to do this, but that's what I'm doing. Okay, so for the pot color, kind of like this like yellow ochre-y color, maybe with a bit more reddish to it. Bit more of like a brown. Kind of want to match my couch a little. Okay. And I think I have to remember that gouache dries darker. So maybe I'll add a little bit of white. Let's wash off our brush first though. Okay, so let's cover the whole pot in this color. bit more white, more yellow. A little bit more brown to it, I think. So when I'm doing straight line painting, especially with like gouache or something where I need it to be fairly straight, I like using these flat shader brushes. It's just a lot easier to get those lines that you want. It's still a little tricky. You gotta kind of try and get your hand as steady as you can, but having a flat shader would really help with that. And I find if your gouache is a bit too dry at times and you want to get like those nice crisp lines, just add a little bit of water to your brush to kind of thin it out, and it's just easier to drag out that color that way. All right, we'll see. Okay, I'm gonna switch my brush so I can get those rounded edges back there. Okay, let's try and use the round brush for this part. So there's our first layer. I think I can start working on the second layer of this bit now. Okay, so I'm gonna make a darker version of that green. I'm gonna add a bit more brown to it. Grab a little bit of this color too, because I want to do the shadows now. I'm gonna add a little bit of water to thin out that consistency. And I'm gonna go on the underside of the aloe, each like little aloe leaf. They're not leaves, but you know what I mean. Okay, so for this part, like I said, I just took that darker green color and I went from the base of each of the leaves. I'm gonna call them leaves because I don't know what they are. And I went along the whole underside, just on one side of each of the leaves, and then I did these like darker shadows coming from the base of each leaf and kind of flicking up so it gets a little thinner towards the middle of the leaf, just giving it a bit of depth and shadow. And then if you have two leaves that are maybe like in front of one, so there's a leaf behind, you're gonna create that shadow behind those two leaves. If you look at the top left corner, that one is kind of behind two leaves, and you're just gonna put the shadow kind of at the base of that, of whatever you see of that leaf. And that's kind of my process for the dark shading. And then I might grab a little bit of black and add it to it. Add a little bit more water and just really darken up at the base. Like that. Okay, so we're gonna let that part dry a bit and we'll work on some of the shading on the pot. So I wanna make a shadow color of that. I'm gonna add a little bit more, actually maybe some of this brown. Just wanna make it darker. And because it's starting to dry a bit, I'm just gonna try to add water to get a creamier consistency. And I'm gonna go around this side to make more of a shadow. So I'm gonna bring a little line over here. That. Okay. Still gonna darken up just so we can get a bit of like an edge. Like that. I'm gonna grab a bit more of that dark brown to get even darker. Just kind of outline it a bit. I think the hardest part about this is just trying to keep your arm, your hand as steady as possible. Which can be very tricky. All right, and now I'm gonna start adding some of the lighter parts. So I'm gonna add some white to that yellow ochre. A bit more white. And I'm just going to, maybe that's a bit too much white. I'm gonna go on this side of the pot. And add a bit of highlight. Like that. Same here. I'm gonna draw off my brush a bit and just make it a bit more, oops. I always forget that gouache reactivates with more water, so it's kind of starting to lift up the paint underneath a bit, which I don't want, so. Okay, and then I'm gonna make it lighter up here as well. Maybe a little bit of a highlight there. And then I'm just going to take some straight white, mix it just a little bit with the yellow, and give it even more of a highlight. Like so, maybe a little bit there and there. Cute. Okay. Now let's do the lighter parts on the green. So I'm going to add some, here we have some white here. White to the green to get a lighter shade of that aloe plant. So this white here had dried, so I'm just going to try and reactivate that. And we're going to go along the other side of the plant. Like that. I feel like we could do a little bit of lightness coming down. It's cool. All right, and then I'm gonna add even more white. And we're gonna do like the little bumpy bits on the light side. So you're just gonna do like these little spikes. Like that. And I think I'm just going to add a bit more of the darkest part to the underside. Get a little bit of black to mix with this green. And I think for my first piece that looks like this, I think it's pretty decent. But I love how matte and vibrant it is. And yeah, that's about it. Okay, so now that I'm done with the paint, to prevent it from drying out, I know you can reactivate it with water if it does get a little bit crusty. I clean the palette, I'm gonna put it back, put the lid back on. And then to store it, I'm just gonna put it in a Ziploc bag just for a bit more further protection against the air. Don't think you have to do this, but it'll just make me feel a little bit better. So here's the finished piece. I am really happy with how it turned out. And to be honest, I don't really notice a difference between this gouache and the Winsor Newton Designer Gouache. Maybe I just don't know my gouaches, but I really liked it and I really enjoyed working with it. And the fact that it was all open and exposed and I could just pick and choose colors as I was painting was a huge plus for me. And I didn't waste any paint along the way. So there was a lot of pluses using this gouache for me. And I think it's really great, especially for beginners, because it's not that expensive and you get all of these colors. I will make sure to do a follow-up video in the next month or two to let you know how these paints held up in the palette with just the lid covering it. But until then, this is a paint set that I definitely recommend. Thank you all so much for watching my video. I really hope you liked it and I hope you learned something. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and follow me on Instagram for even more. Have a great day, guys. Bye.